Yeah, well, I mean, the other side of my reflective nature is I'm a bit of a spiritualista. So I'm really into self-development, but also like metaphysical topics. And so my podcast, Soul Sister Series, really explores some of those themes. I talk about my practices with ancestral veneration and what it means to be divinely feminine. And it kind of goes into a little bit of an audio diary in some of my later episodes. So I am on Spotify at Soul Sister Series if you want to hear that. I'm about 42 episodes in, so I'm a baby compared to you, Dave.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, an amazing author podcast. It's amazing for one reason, because of our guests. Our guests make this show so much fun for me as the host. I get to meet some amazing people, and Tia's on the show today. We're going to be talking about her book, her journey, and she's waving because everybody's like, hey, that's her, she's here. And we're going to talk about her book, her journey. She's got a great story to share with you. You're going to love her. She's just a great person. So she's a podcaster. It's a little bit on hiatus right now, but it's coming. It's coming. Great stuff in the future as well. And I'm excited to have her on the show. Tia, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Come on, that smile makes me happy. So I'm glad to have you here. Tell everybody, Tia, where are you in this big world of ours?
Yes, I am coming from Charleston, South Carolina, the local.
Ooh, there you
Yes,
go. All right. Is that born and raised? Is that where you're from?
kind of. So I was
Okay.
born here, but I
Okay.
was actually raised in Virginia because my
Oh,
dad was in the military, but have always visited Charleston. All my family's here, always loved the city, and got the chance to come here as a remote worker after COVID hit. So I've been here for about 4 years now.
wow. There
In
you
full,
go.
yeah.
So I come to visit you. Where are you taking me? What's a must see, must do thing where you live?
We've got to go to the Battery. You've got to see Rainbow Row. You have to do a tour of downtown Charleston. Like it is America's oldest city. So much
Okay.
history here, Dave.
Okay.
So definitely going downtown.
All right. You got me at history. I love history. I love stories. I love going where people have been before and all of that fun stuff. So great.
Yeah.
All right. I'm putting it on my calendar. I'm on my way. So there you go. But I've got to do this interview with you first and then we'll talk.
There.
All right. So this is Living the Next Chapter. It's an author podcast. We have authors who listen to this show and they're at the very beginning of their journey. They don't know what's ahead of them. And here you are, published author, kind of like a big deal. It's kind of nice to have you here. I've never done this, so I can't answer any of these questions, but only you can.
Mm.
If there was a podcast where an author was talking to you before you started your journey as a writer, what
Mhm.
would have been helpful for you to hear from a published author before you started writing yourself?
Remember the reason why you wrote the story.
Okay.
I that would be something that would have been very helpful for me because there's so much visibility in the publishing process. You go through so many different editing rounds, even getting my manuscript accepted. I had to submit it to my indie publishing house for review. And so you can kind of get confused and lost in the translation of different opinions surrounding your story, edits that are proposed. You can kind of lose track of what the intention was when writing the novel. And so I would definitely tell myself and anyone else who's about to come into this process, keep your narrative in mind because sometimes you might have to fight for it a bit. And as you're crafting your story and going through the different stages of the publishing process, you want to make sure that your intention stays intact.
Okay. What point do you focus on your audience, your ideal reader? In podcasting, we create for an ideal listener. So we're kind of thinking of them. But from a writer's perspective, are you writing for yourself? Are you writing for an audience? When do you establish that?
Yeah, I think for me, when I first started my novel, I honestly was not writing for the reader. I was
Okay.
writing for the sake of just expressing this story as an outlet to my creativity. It wasn't until I actually submitted my manuscript that my mind frame changed to actually publishing this book for people to read. And so I had to be open to feedback that concerned whether or not the edits that I needed to make would resonate with readers, if it was going to be friendly to the queer community, because I do have a queer focused novel, and really accepting those edits and being willing to like transform the novel in those ways was more so to connect with a reader base. So I'd say like at the time that I knew that I wanted to actually publish this book, it turned from just an expression of creativity to something that I actually wanted to resonate with people.
Okay. Where did the idea, the seed for the story come from?
So I wrote my story. I was 17 years old, so it was quite a
Wow.
go. Yes, don't say it like that, Dave. I'm
No, no,
only
no. I mean, like, wow, that's amazing that you did. Because at 17, I don't even think I could even put a whole
it was
sentence
just
together.
a few years ago,
It was
Dave.
like last year. Last year you wrote this book.
Exactly. No, I wrote the book over a decade ago. And at the time, I was an only child, very introverted, very self-reflective, and wanted to understand facets of human experience. I actually studied psychology in college. So I've always been really interested in human behavior. And at that time, I was exposed to the queer community in high school. And even though I don't identify as a queer person, I really wanted to understand the experience in the
Mm.
community. And so I created a storyline that would basically take the protagonist through expressions of fluidity in their sexuality. And that was my way of sort of trying to process that experience for myself.
Okay. So that's interesting that you're writing to the community, not actually from the community from that perspective. That's unique, right?
Yeah,
That's pretty special.
it is. And I had to go through a sensitivity edit, which
Okay.
was someone in the queer community did read my novel and edit it to make sure that I wasn't saying anything offensive. And that person gave me feedback that they were really proud that someone who was not in the community took the time to write a queer focused novel. Because you think about the different perspectives that people write from, it's often that they don't write from experiences that they have. You have people from different racial genres making, creative works that speak to expressions of people that they can identify with, but that's not necessarily always the truth when it comes to the queer community. I think that you often find only queer people write to queer people, but I think that it's important to allow people who are not in that community to resonate and to connect with them by writing to that experience as well.
So why is this so important for you to write to this community?
Because I think that like part of being human is wanting to connect and resonate with people in the experiences that they have. And I think that in the same way as I attend pride events and I want to be shown as an ally to that community, I also want to be able to harness my creative endeavors to speak to the experiences they have as well.
Okay. What do you learn about yourself in writing this book?
That's an interesting question.
Hmm.
I think I think when I started writing the protagonist, Ian is her name, a lot of her foundational qualities came from aspects of myself. So I could resonate with her in terms of her being, quite introverted, like I mentioned, very self-reflective, someone who is constantly kind of like exploring their curiosity. But it's just the level of exploration veering into the sexual arena that I can't relate with. But I think that ultimately, what I learned from writing the novel in terms of like just the exploring part is that it's never too late to question your identity and to like redefine what that means. Even though I don't identify with the queer community, that's not to say that one day that may change, the way that I view sexuality, the way that I view um just like different aspects of what it means to be myself, that's always up for negotiation. And I think that that was my big takeaway when writing the story, because Ian does go through an arc of development where she believes that she identifies one way, and by the end of the novel, she's kind of questioning that for herself.
At any point were you nervous that your book might not be accepted by the queer community?
I was really nervous when I went through my sensitivity edit because
Yeah.
I knew that I don't know all of the nuances of the queer community, and I was afraid that I was going to offend my sensitivity editor, which I didn't do. There were things that she had to educate me on, which I really appreciate. But yeah, I wasn't sure how it would be received because I'm not someone who's speaking directly from that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. So then you're going to learn in that process even more, right?
Yes, I've learned so much. I've learned so much just from that one phase of the editing process, just different taboos and things that are like faux pas and different language that's not appropriate or appropriate to use
Yeah.
within the community. So it was a huge learning experience.
So that edit's happening kind of at near the end of the process. Would it
Yeah.
have been beneficial to have something at the beginning of the process as well that could have helped you early on in the writing of the book?
I think it definitely could have helped because I talked about this on my conversation in my conversation I had with my publisher, but my book had to significantly change when it came to the ending because of representation and how that was shining kind of a negative light on the queer community. So if I had that sensitivity edit a little earlier in the process, I probably could have saved myself some time with rewriting.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, I don't regret the fact that it was at the end because I really had to focus on cohesion for a lot of the previous edits. And then when I got to the end with the sensitivity edit, it was more so just sort of brushing up and making sure that things sort of came together. So I don't think it was a negative thing for the sensitivity edit to be at the end. But if it was at the beginning, perhaps this story would have looked a little different. I'm not sure.
Was this the book that 17-year-old Tia was trying to write?
Oh, I like that question. I would say yes.
Yeah.
17-year-old Tia was really just trying to write a novel that reflected the importance of questioning identity and the flexibility of sexuality and human evolution. And I think that's what I accomplished in writing Question of Affection. That's what I hope that readers take away.
Yeah. Because over that period of time, writing the book, things are different, right? The
Yes.
world's different, society's different,
Yes.
you're different,
Correct.
right? So a 17-year-old today starting this project is writing from a different concept and place in the world than you did when you started writing.
That's
So,
true.
right.
And that was reflected a little bit in my edits as well. One of my editing rounds was to sort of bring the book back to the current times because 10 years ago, the world did look a lot different.
Hmm.
And my references were a bit outdated.
Do you have friends in the community that kind of you kind of look at and kind of go, I'm kind of basing a little bit of the story on some of the people within my own circle, my own community?
When I wrote the novel, I did not have any friends who identified as
Okay.
queer. So I can't say that my inspiration came from any human examples at that time. It wasn't until after I had already crafted the story, submitted the manuscript, and went through the editing process that I had started to make more friends, specifically here in Charleston within that community. Because as I referenced, I do support the Pride Festival here.
Yeah.
And attend the events and I learn and ask questions and I've been able to make some connections that way.
I think that's a good thing we need to stop on and take a second to talk about. Because for people that are not part of the community, we don't really know how to interact with the community,
Hmm.
right? There's kind of like the people that are in the community and then the people who are not. And the
Yeah,
people who are not tend to not go to events for the community because they're not in the community. Here you are writing a book from your perspective, attending events, being part of the community, but not in the I love that that's your approach. So I
mhm.
can tell this is very meaningful for you, that
Sure.
you want to be in that space and you want to be representing and being part of that community. So I love that that's your approach. What do you learn that people who are not part of the community should be learning by your perspective?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned from trying to insert myself into the community are the ways in which straight or heterosexual identifying people unintentionally um, do not make space for people who
Mm,
identify in a different way, whether that be through their behaviors, their language, just things that we take for granted. For example, I learned that as someone who was an ally attending those events, I attended a panel discussion where some of the people on the panel were saying when allies come to their events, they should not position themselves as if they are the center of attention because ultimately the role of a supporter is to allow people in the community to kind of own the space. And they have experienced times where straight people have come and just sort of made the spotlight be on their experience,
mm,
comfort, their curiosity, and that's really not what it's about, and that's not what it's for. So that's kind of one example of things that I've learned from just kind of observing and being curious and willing to bridge the gap between queer and non-queer folk.
interesting. Kind of like be the megaphone, but don't be the voice.
Right. Yes. Don't speak for them. And again, and also, this was something that I found very interesting. The level of questioning that sometimes happens between straight people and queer people can really veer the line of inappropriate.
Right.
Uh, there are lines of questions that straight people wouldn't ask each other. And so that's also something to keep in mind, especially when you're considering someone's sexuality. So,
Interesting. Yeah. And I've had people on the podcast in the past. We've chatted about this, and I come at it, and I'm hungry to learn.
yeah,
I think that when there's people in a community that we don't identify with personally, we can have one or two responses. We can either try to get close and build that allyship, or we can just ignore it completely. And what I'm finding is there's not a lot of people who are like you who are trying to be an ally, to understand, and to share something that helps in the conversation, right? And I just think that if we had more people like you with this approach, I just think things could be so dramatically better. And it touches on the queer community, it touches on race, it touches on so many different things, right? A kind of a parallel conversation going on, that this is something that we need more of. This kind of approach, instead of here's me, here's what I am, and here's what I believe. And if you don't think or take my path, I don't have much time for you. And
right,
I'm like, I think we need a different approach in
right.
big terms, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's so much privilege embedded in that line of thought too. I
Yeah.
think that people benefit from a lot of privilege that they don't really recognize. And so that sometimes seeps into the attempt to connect with people who are in kind of like the minority of sexual preference when it comes to the queer community.
Okay. What about some of the fears that we have? Maybe looking into the queer community from an outside point of view, maybe the queer community looking back at us.
Mhm.
What are some of the fears that maybe be in common or different from those two perspectives, you think?
Fears in terms of me writing this queer focused novel.
Yeah. Yeah, or even from the community's perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my biggest fear was bad representation
Yeah.
because, again, I mean, like you mentioned, be the megaphone, but don't necessarily take control.
Yeah.
I didn't want to come across as trying to tell the experience or the story of a person who does not identify with me. And that's why I intentionally created Ian as someone who did not identify as queer and was questioning her identity and
Okay.
questioning what sexuality and her fluidity meant, as opposed to creating a character who was completely identifying as, queer and not having any questions of sexuality. I don't think that I would really be able to do that justice. Um, but I didn't want to in any way offend anyone in the community. I honestly was just hoping that I would give everyone, not just people in the queer community, but everyone a sense of understanding that sexuality is fluid and that questioning sexuality is not something that is taboo. It's something that, everyone can experience, and it's just part of the process of understanding like identity. I think that in terms of, repeat to me the second part of the question, was it the fear up from the community?
Yeah, like just wondering, like, what are some of the fears that maybe we have when working with and being in the community and supporting community like you do?
Hmm.
Some of the fears we have towards the community, maybe like, for me, for example, would be like saying the wrong thing and
Yeah.
just being
Uh,
in the wrong space at the wrong time and saying something stupid. That's my biggest fear because I don't want somebody to go, well, there's that guy. And of
mhm.
course he's going to say that. But I just, in my ignorance, saying something dumb, which
Yeah.
I don't mean to do, but I probably will because it's just who I am. So that's my fear is I don't want to do something that would make somebody go, okay, there's another example of a dumb guy, right? In this context, right? And that makes me nervous because I
Right.
don't want to be that person, right? So that's one of my fears, right?
Resonate with that, definitely. And I think that kind of building off of that, Dave, a big fear of mine is, and it's something that I've stumbled upon in the past, which makes it even more fearful, is getting the language right, the
Yeah,
pronouns. That's something
yeah,
has definitely stumped me in the past, and it's always extremely awkward. Um, I have learned that apologizing profusely is sort of taking the spotlight. And it's not
that's see right there, exactly.
exactly, it's not about, being overly apologetic. It's about the correction, and kind of moving forward. And so, yeah, that always intimidates me.
Right. I don't want to cause anybody undue harm by
Yeah.
interacting with me. That's never my intent. I don't get up in the morning and go, how can I mess up somebody's day today? That's never been my point, like my reason for getting up and doing my day, right? But it can happen, and that's the part that makes me that's my fear. I don't want to hurt somebody. That's really my comes down to, right?
And I think it's more likely that those accidents will happen the less willing we are to interact with the community, which is why I think it's so important that we bridge that gap. You
Yeah.
know, we're exposed to the language, if we're exposed to the norms, then it's going to be more common thought for us to be able to speak in ways that are accepted by that community. So I think it's the fact that that's just not the norm for me.
Mhm.
To use, pronouns, different types of pronouns for people who identify in non-binary ways that makes me feel intimidated. But then again, I can't allow that intimidation to keep me from interacting because it's a negative cycle.
Yeah. Becomes an excuse to not interact and
Yes.
withdraw, right? You just start withdrawing from that. Yeah.
Right.
And that doesn't help anybody.
No,
No.
makes me
Okay.
worse.
Right. So how old is Ian when we first meet Ian in the story?
Ian is about 36, 37. She's in her late 30s.
Okay. So let's talk about her character, who she is. If you could introduce her to the crowd, maybe
Yeah.
like at an event or something, she's going to come to the podium and speak. Tell us about this person. What do we need to know about her? How would you introduce her to a group?
Yeah, I'd say that Ian is a woman in her late 30s. She's a pharmacist. She's very self-reflective. She's someone who is a commitment phobe. And so she's sort of navigating through past relationships that she's had and her fears of intimacy and wanting to really change that narrative for herself as she grows older and she desires companionship.
Interesting. The pharmacist part.
Yeah.
That's interesting. How does that play into all of this? Why she could be anything as a
Yeah.
career, but
Yes.
specifically a pharmacist? Like, how does that kind of play into this?
I would say that I chose that profession for Ian because she's someone who really appreciates routine.
Okay.
doesn't really explore lots of her creative outlets. She's someone who lives a pretty monotonous life. And so her career reflects that as well. Her days mostly look the same.
Okay.
And she's just someone who is the type of person who goes to the job in the morning, leaves at night, and leaves the job behind.
Okay. Because there's an element of healthcare, caring for patients, knowing a lot of information, right? To be dealing with medicine and all of that. That's another component of that role, right? So there's kind of a caring part to her, maybe?
In some ways, I think that from my understanding of pharmacy, and I'm not a pharmacist, so I
Yeah.
couldn't,
Yeah.
they aren't really the front facers. They're kind of in the back, mixing the
Yeah.
conclusions.
Yeah.
And there are other people who deal with the patients face to face. They're kind
Sure.
of hidden. So that also reflects her personality in that she's not really going to be the center of attention.
So studious. You have to know a lot to do that role, right? So there's a lot of education. So she's smart. She knows what she's doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also kind of comes with the territory when you find people who are really self-reflective.
Yeah.
Usually they're intellectual. So I think that goes hand in hand.
Would you say her identity is being a pharmacist, or is that her job?
No, that's absolutely her job.
Okay.
She's trying to understand where her identity lies. I think that that's like her central conflict in the story.
Okay.
It's from a sexual preference, but also as she's aging, trying to understand what it is that she really wants out of life.
See, now that's an interesting part too. Is the identity based on your sexuality, based on your career, based on they could be based on anything, right?
Mhm.
And I find that from your story is her focus on that part of her life, right? Her sexuality is something that's is so important for her in the story. But again, I find people that don't think maybe about career and how they balance out.
Yeah.
Like it, that's the part that I kind of wrestle with too. Is how if we have like a percentage of scale, what's our balance point, right? Between our sexuality, our career, our life, our health, right? Our relationships, those are all components. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes when we weigh one thing more than the other, some of the other things in our life become a little bit more unbalanced because it's our priority in the moment. It could be career, for example. My
Mhm.
career is my main focus, and everything else is kind of when I have time for it. But this is really her focus, right? So, is she giving up some of her other things in her life as she refocuses on her sexuality and where she's going?
Not necessarily. I think that kind of her focus, being that it takes so much to be a pharmacist in terms of studies,
Yeah.
that had to be her main and primary focus for quite some
Okay.
time. In her late 30s, that's no longer an issue. She's sort of fixed in
Yeah.
her.
Okay.
And so now she's trying to navigate other forms of her identity that she may have
Okay.
abandoned,
Okay.
in her early, mid, late 20s when she was kind of focusing on settling all of the material aspects of her identity. So, as she's going through this journey of evolution throughout the narrative, she doesn't necessarily have to give up anything in regards to her career. It's more so just understanding where is it that she wants to go in terms of the other facets of her identity that she's neglected.
Okay. So that pharmacist role for her is kind of a stable place where she doesn't have to worry about it. That's a job. I can go there, do my job, and go home. So I
That's
don't
it.
have to think about it. Now I can focus on another part of my life that's really important to me in this moment.
Right, because she kind of looks around in her late 30s and she's alone. Her
Right.
life is the same every day. And she's kind of wondering, what else is out there for me?
So someone can relate to the story if they're dealing with their own self identity right now.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Need to explore it.
Right. So that opens the door for people to read the book as well from a different perspective. Maybe they're dealing with their own version of self identity. So they're gonna find a piece of themselves in the story as well.
That's my hope. That's my hope. I definitely didn't want to write this novel as if the primary audience should be queer people. That was not the intention.
Okay.
It a queer focused novel in that the main character is exploring questions of sexuality, but at the end of the day, Ian is a human being and we can connect with so many different aspects of her journey just by being human beings as well. So, and that's true for all of the characters, not just Ian. So it's a narrative for everyone. This particular story just does go down the realm of sexuality.
Okay. What are some of the other key characters that we're going to meet through the book as well?
You're going to meet Wyatt, who is Ian's love interest. He's a man. You'll also meet Opal, who's a female, and she is actually the catalyst for why Ian starts to question her sexuality, the attraction that she forms with Opal. And then there's also Lawson, who you'll meet, who is a former lover of Ian, and he draws upon some of those issues that she has with commitment. You kind of get a background look at how those issues developed for her in that relationship.
Interesting. Okay. So then let's again talk a little bit more about the reader. Who do you envision then? Now, having a copy of this book, who would you say this book is perfect for?
Honestly, I don't think that this book targets one type of person. I
Okay.
think men and women can read this book.
Yep.
I would say that in terms of age demographic, it is an adult novel. So it
Yep.
would probably be people who are in their mid 20s and up. But it's not something that's just written for women. It's not something that's just written for people in the queer community. And it's not something that's written for people who don't identify as queer. It's written for human beings who are going through the human experience,
Nice.
are willing to ask themselves important questions for their own self-development and growth.
Okay. And from your perspective as the author, then, what are you proud of for this book? Now it's done. It's out there in the world. What makes you happy when you look at this book?
One, that I went through with it because
Right.
it was so hard to go through the publishing process, especially from someone who considers themselves more introverted than extroverted.
Hmm.
It's really hard to share your art with people and have, you know, people willing to form opinions about it and potential criticisms. So it makes me proud that I actually went through with the whole thing. But I'm also proud that I had the courage to write a story that explores identities that I don't have myself. I think that, like mentioned, my sensitivity editor was really happy and pleased that I was willing to engage with the community in that way.
Nice.
And I'm proud of myself too, because like I said, I consider myself an ally. And I think that queer stories need to see the light of day. And because queer people are, one would say, I'm not sure what the statistic is, in the minority, you know, it's going to take more than just queer voices to share those types of stories if we want to, allow them to be more mainstream. So I'm glad that I could kind of add to that number.
Okay. One of the things I hear from authors a lot on the show is they have to give a comp for their book. So where it would be comparable to another author, another genre, another style of book. Did you have to go through that process with your publisher at all to kind of say, this is the shelf I think my book is going to live on in a bookstore?
No, I mean, we talked about genres. So it started off, I remember I started at 17. So it
Yeah.
was kind of reading as young adult. And so I had to age the book a bit. And then it became a contemporary romance. So that's where my genre lies. But in terms of like comps with writing styles, I can tell you my favorite author is Edwidge Danticat.
Mm.
She's a Asian American writer, and she's really big into descriptive language and metaphors. And I really always appreciated the way that she writes. So I would say that if there's anything that has inspired me with the writing of my novel, it was her writings.
Okay. So some of that kind of fed its way into your writing style too, then?
The way that I would describe some of the characters and the language that I would use is part of the way that I saw her write her novels too.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because it's a little bit of influence, a little bit of a nod and recognition of somebody that you admire.
Yeah.
I'm a musician, so I see elements of other type of music showing up in my own music. I'm like, where did that come from? Oh, that's that song over there, right? I can feel the influence of other people on what I do, right? And it makes my music unique because it's a mix of all the things that I like mixed together from my perspective through my lens. And that's kind of how I put my music out. So I would think it'd be similar for an author.
Yeah, I think so. I think, we can't help. What is the saying? Nothing, there's no new ideas.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So we're kind of like this walking vat of influence that we're getting from all different sides. So I think that there's definitely not even just Edwidge, but probably other authors I'm not even realizing woven into some of the ways that I wrote the characters, woven into some of the characteristics of the characters. They may have been from, different characters I've read about in the past, but I tried to make them as original as I could.
What would it mean to you for somebody to say, I was reading this great book from Tia Lachey and it
Mhm.
became my thing? Like, I just love how she writes and it inspired me to write. What would
Yeah,
that mean for you to have another author, a junior author, looking to you going, I just love how she wrote this book, and then being inspired to write their story? You're now published. You could be that just for them, like you're the authors that you admire, that you look up to. You could be that for someone else. What does that feel like?
I have never thought about that. Actually, Dave,
Right?
I think the highest form of flattery for a
Right.
writer to inspire another writer. I think that if someone were to read my work and be inspired to put out their work because of that, that would be the answer. What I'm most
Mm,
proud of, after writing this novel is giving someone else the courage to do so too. Because we need more books. We need more
yeah.
outlet activity.
So as you're listening to this, and I just described you to a T, you're like, I can't believe it. Yes, this Tia is my author. Then you
Oh,
need to reach out to Tia and tell her. You need to let her know,
ooh,
right?
I love that. I would love that. And any advice I can give along the way, because I'm a first-time author, so all of this is very fresh. I would happily give advice where requested.
Now, I am also putting my hand up. I'm also a fellow introvert. The idea of getting out there and talking about your book.
Yeah.
Is it hard to do that for you? Like, does it like you have to put some effort behind this? For me, I like I like what I can do on my own and I like doing my thing, but then to tell people about what I do is always a little bit weird. So, for
Yeah.
you, what's easy, what's hard about promoting a book?
It's all hard.
It's
It's
all
all
hard. There you
hard.
go.
This is the hardest part. I thought the
Yeah.
editing process was hard, but the marketing is really hard. I have a difficulty with feeling comfortable being seen. And
Mhm.
I think part of that is why, like, I'm a writer because you don't necessarily have to see me. I
Right.
like podcasts because you don't generally see me, at least on my audio
Yeah.
podcast. So being seen and talking about, something that's so sentimental to me, it makes me really nervous. Like as much as you have put me at ease, Dave, with this interview, I'm nervous now.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just, I don't think it'll ever stop being uncomfortable for me to do this part.
Yeah. I think that's the one side too, though. I think people misunderstand about introverts. It's not that we're like super shy. It's just
Yeah,
that we don't get our energy in the same way that an extrovert would. Right?
correct.
We're just wired differently. So it just takes us a little different approach than somebody who's bombastic and big in the room and people are just like, oh, look at that person. They're so exciting. And they're drawn to them. We're just the ones in the corner going, we're good. We're just fine. Like, can we go now? Like, so it's a little bit different when you have to talk about yourself, right?
It is.
But
It's so uncomfortable. But I will say, I'm really surprised to hear that you're an introvert.
really? Oh my gosh. My wife would tell you in a heartbeat. She used to drag me around the room. If we go anywhere, I've been there 5 minutes. I'm ready to go home. I'm like, are we done? And she's the opposite of me. So that's a good mix to have somebody who's a little bit different than me because then I stay longer at all these events. Anyways. So
Yes. And she might want to stay all night. So
yeah,
you're
yeah. Right.
back
So I balance her out. I'm glad I fooled you though. That's good. That's a good sign. So
600 plus episodes. You
come
definitely
on. What I've found, here's my little secret, is I have a Dave dial, I call it, and I know I have to turn it up just a little bit when I would sit down with somebody like you and do an interview or do a podcast or whatever. I know I have to be just a little bit more Dave. I can
Yeah.
turn it back down later when I'm by myself again, but I know I've got to just kind of be a little bit more than I would naturally be without
Yeah.
being weird. Just a little bit, right?
I get it.
Yeah.
I get You have on my, I'm dialed up a little bit for this interview as well, so I get it.
Yeah. Okay. As an author, my listeners loved it, this the answer to this question.
Mhm.
Uh, they love finding an author that they fall in love with, and they're like, Dave, don't let them go without asking. The name of my show is Living the Next Chapter, so I got to ask. Your book's out in the world. Are you going to keep writing more stories to come in the future? What can we expect from this amazing author here today? Anything else you got working on?
Oh my gosh, you're too kind. I am taking a pause with narrative writing for now. I did start another novel
Hmm.
before I started the process of publishing this one, which was a thriller, believe it or
Oh,
yeah, so really hovering genres, but after I started getting into the editing process with Question of Affection, it just took up all of my time. And so I've set down the thriller for now. One of these days I will pick it back up. Hopefully it won't be another 10 years. But in terms of my writings, I'm just focusing on like personal writings, journaling and poems and things for now.
okay. Excellent. Yeah, we
Yeah.
want to encourage our authors to keep writing. And when we find an author we really resonate with and tells great stories, we just want to keep encouraging you to keep going. Right.
Yeah.
So I love that.
I'll get back.
Let You will. All right. I'm cheering you on. I'm cheering you on. For people that want to come grab a copy of the book, is there a preferred place you'd like to send them? And also, where are we going to connect with you to follow your journey and to be in your world? Where do you want to send people?
Yeah, I think Amazon is the easiest place to get the book. It's just such a huge distributor. So you can find my book there. You can find my book anywhere that they really sell books. So Barnes and Noble, Books a
Nice.
Million. You can also find it on my publisher site, winsbookspublishing.com. But as far as following my journey, you can definitely follow my author pages at Tia Lachey Writes, writes like writes with a pen. Tia Lachey writes on Instagram and Tia Lachey on Facebook.
Excellent. We'll have links for all that, as always, in the show notes. Now, you did kind of mention here and there you have a podcast. Can you tell people about your podcast? Because we have, guess what? We have all these podcast listeners.
We
They're
do.
here near the end of this episode. They're like, I wish I could get a little bit more Tia.
Oh,
You can. So, talk a little bit about your show as well. Let's hear about your podcast.
yeah. Well, I mean, the other side of my reflective nature is I'm a bit of a spiritualista. So I'm really into self-development, but also like metaphysical topics. And so
Ooh,
my podcast, Soul Sister series, really explores some of those themes. I talk about my practices with ancestral veneration and what it means to be divinely feminine. And it kind of goes into a little bit of an audio diary in some of my later episodes. So I am on Spotify at Soul Sister series if you want to hear that. I'm about 42 episodes in, so I'm a baby compared to you,
come
Dave.
on, come on.
But I have a little out of office an out of office, you know, I don't know what you would call it. That's just kind of what my status is right
You're
now.
out of, you're, yeah. That's nice.
I'll come back at some point.
Yes, it's like a vacation reminder or something, right?
Yes,
Basically. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
office
I'm here. But we have 42 episodes? That's a lot. That's a lot. That's great.
zero. So, there's that.
Right? So we have something else. We got that'll hold us over and give us some time for you to write your next book. We'll go listen to all that, take all that in, right?
Listen to them twice, maybe three.
Twice, twice, three times. We'll get all the listens we can as podcasters. We love it. This is really good to you. I love the concept of your book. I love how you approached it. I love that it started for you and when you're 17 and you grew up with the book and the
Yeah.
book grew up with you at the same time. It changed, you changed. There's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. And I
Yeah.
think that's the one thing that readers don't always catch. They see a book on the shelf and they go, huh, question of affection. Cool. But there's a whole story behind this book. And I
Yep.
think that's the idea of this show is just to connect people with you. And now they have a better understanding of what the book's about. They kind of already know Ian and they haven't even met Ian yet, but now they have a context, right, to what the story's about.
Right. Yes, that's the hope. That's the hope. So I definitely would appreciate a read. And if you want to give me some feedback, I'd appreciate that as well.
Excellent. And everyone, when, not if, when you buy this book, please leave a great review. I know Tia would love to hear your thoughts. Get your comments, right? That means so much. Our authors give us their words as they write. We give our words back as we give our reviews. It's kind of a relationship we have with our authors. So please, when, not if, when you buy this book, you're going to leave a great review. And I already know you know somebody who's going to love this book. So buy 2 copies, one for you, one for them. And Tia would love to hear your thoughts. Tia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. I had a blast.
You did an amazing. I loved having you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our guest for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Make sure you go like, follow, share this episode to support your fellow authors. And a reminder to always leave a review every time you buy a book from your favorite author. It means so much to them. It's your words back to the author on why this book means something to you. That's one responsibility that we have as readers, to support our authors by leaving great reviews. I know you've probably forgotten more than you've remembered to leave reviews. So my little ask of you here as we're exiting out of the episode, to go back, go grab that stack of books behind you, put them on your desk, and go to the websites where you purchase these books and leave a review now. I know you bought the book years ago. Go leave a review today. Let the author know how much you love their book. Give really detailed information about why you love this book so much. Let's celebrate our authors by leaving a great review. And thank you for listening to Living the Next Chapter. Thank you for being here. See you next time.